right, what's going on? Welcome back to the Insight with Irv show. I think that we left off on either episode 20 or episode 21. So I'm not even sure what episode this is, but I can vouch to you that we've been working on some things behind the scenes, and I'm excited to be back with our podcast. We haven't necessarily taken a hiatus with any of our social platforms, but we've been working on the back end, especially scaling our coaching program, the Insight Inner Circle. But when it comes to the podcast, one of the things that I really want to focus on going forward is I want to take you guys on a journey, not just about entrepreneurship, but also things that happen behind the scenes, like mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health. I think that these are things that play into part of not just how we scale our businesses, but also how we perform outside of our businesses, which is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is what we're going to be covering today. And that's, what do you do when you start over? And so starting over, it's one of those things that a lot of people, they kind of get scared about starting over. They get frightened. Hey, I built up everything that I have now. The last thing that I want to do is lose it all. The last thing that I want to do is start over, whether I'm 35 and I'm starting over. I just got out of college. I have no job. I have to now get a job that I absolutely hate to pay off pretty much an academic piece of paper that doesn't necessarily grant me the job title that I thought that I would have. So now I have bigger debt than what I do paycheck. I have a bigger debt than what I do salary. Or maybe you're in a space where you ran your business 25, 30, 40 years, and because of the pandemic, now maybe your business is half of what it was, or maybe you had to go back to a day job, or even worse, maybe you're, at the last kind of like straw where you're wondering, where am I going to see my next paycheck from? Is my family going to eat this month? Am I going to be able to cover my bills? And so these are all things that I want to touch on when it comes to starting over, because it is a real thing. And I think that there is a positive side to starting over. So let's get right into it. When you are starting over, the first thing that you want to, I would say, think of differently about starting over is that it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I know that that's a hard pill to swallow, but let me explain. I remember when I was, I got my real estate license at 23. 24, 25, 26, 27, about 4 years into it, I decided to move into a brand new market out in South Florida. I was newlyweds, just gotten married, decided to, don't have any kids just yet, but if we're gonna test anything out, let's go ahead and make some mistakes. Now, this was literally my thought process. Let's go ahead and make some mistakes now. I have enough bandwidth where if I screw up, I just have to make sure that me and my wife at the time are taken care of. So we move into this new market. We were out in South Florida, and I thought that I would be able to get things going by month 6. Well, I was able to pick up my first listing by month 6, but I wasn't necessarily able to make my first sale until about the 12th month in. So you can imagine what was happening, right? I started all over. I was a little, I think I bit off a little bit more than what I could chew. And I think that that's true for a lot of us, especially when we look at a task and we have these big goals and these big expectations, and then we kind of undermine how much work, how much volume, and how many sets it actually takes for us to be able to scale that vision that we have. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I believe it was 2019 going into 2020. Well, by the end of 2019, we moved back into Orlando. By 2020, we ended up scaling the social media brands and the consulting, kind of like the consulting agency that we have now, which really didn't come until about 2020, 2021. But here's the other side of that I really want to focus on it, which is why I'm bringing it up. I'm taking this somewhere, right? I'm not just giving you the story just to give it to you. During that 1.5, 2 year period of starting over, which I later had to start all over again when I moved back to Orlando, I got some reps in. Some of the reps that I got in, especially for myself, I would consider myself more maybe of like an introvert, even though I can, if you drop me off in the middle of a party, I'll come out with some friends, right? Like I'm not socially awkward by any means. So maybe you can call it an ambivert, right? But as an introvert, someone who just likes being to themselves, I'd rather, be reading a book than out hanging out at the bar, feel like I'm wasting my time. Is I had to get my reps in by making not hundreds, but thousands of cold calls into neighborhoods so that A, do you want to sell your home with me, was my pitch for sellers. Now, obviously there was a few more moving pieces there, but that's essentially what it was. Or B, Do you know anyone that's looking to buy or sell their home in the next 3 to 6 months? That was how I cut my teeth. Thousands of calls, hundreds of hangups, a ton of F-bombs, a ton of people telling me, screw off, go get a real job, even though at the time that's how I was trying to earn a living, right? But then it took it a step further, because as I was able to start to kind of like grow in that aspect of getting in front of strangers and thinking back at it, it's kind of crazy. I'm making a call to someone that I don't know, they don't know me, and essentially what I'm doing is I'm asking them, hey, would you like to have me over your house so that I can tell you how much your house is worth and so that you can put it on the market with me? So if you think about it, that's kind of crazy how you're literally trying to get a stranger to invite you over so that you can transact with them. Obviously, that's what business is. But fast forwarding that today, because a lot of people ask me, you've scaled the social media brands as fast as you have. You were able to pivot. I wouldn't consider myself the world's best speaker, but I would say that I'm pretty comfortable in certain settings, especially when I'm communicating with other humans. And I think that came from the reps of having to start over in South Florida, communicating in front of a camera when I wanted to start creating content for maybe that homeowner about a neighborhood, or if maybe someone was out of town and they wanted to know more about the neighborhood, communicating that, speaking that into a camera, and then breaking it down in a way that would entice them to pick me out of the thousands of agents in a pool that they can choose from. So all of that compounds to what we have today, which is that now carries over into we aren't as socially awkward in front of people, because we were so used to being in front of people and talking to strangers that it's just second nature. The second thing is you've gotten your reps in not just slowing down, because one of the things that I always ran into was you speak a little too quickly, Irv, which is what one of my business coaches told me. Every now and again, I'll still speak relatively fast. Unless I really want to bring a point home, then I'll slow down the cadence. But with that also came slowing down my speech. So when I was in a sales call for one of my companies, I was able to slow down the call, really hear what the prospect was saying. But that, again, only came from the other side of being okay with starting over when I went to South Florida, and then when I moved back here to Orlando, which is where we're at now. So the other point that I want to bring home, and that's this, and we'll close it out with this, is you have experiences that you can use now versus not having any basis in the past. Here's what that means. Even though it may feel like we're starting over sometimes, the experience that you carried over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years, maybe the network that you built, the skills that you acquired, skills compound faster than inflation. And so if you're a skilled individual, you can get dropped off in any market, and it's not going to necessarily be by chance that you're going to succeed. It's only a matter of when, as long as you get your reps in. And so you want to take a look at the situation that you're in, whether you're starting over again. You have a college degree, that's pretty much pointless. You have a business that went to shambles. You got fired from the job that you thought you would retire from with a pension in place, and now you feel like your world is crumbling down. Take a look at all the experiences that you've collected up to this point and take inventory. Okay, what can I use given the situation that I'm in right now? And if you wanted to future pace it and think to yourself, okay, if you're 30, what would 45-year-old me do in the situation given the information that I have? And usually when you see it from that lens, which is more of like a veteran lens, you're going to be able to arrive to a far better answer, because you remove the emotional attachment of what you have in that specific moment. So if you found value in this content, consider hitting the subscribe button, whether you are watching this on YouTube or if you are maybe listening to this on a podcast format, which is maybe on Apple or Spotify, or however you have your audio experience. And it would also mean a lot to us if you leave us a 5-star review. Again, only if you feel that you're getting value out of these segments, because it does help this podcast reach a larger audience. Until next time, everyone, this is Irv. I will see you in the next episode.